Let's say hello to Chris Dingman. Chris, how are you? Welcome to the Sports Cage. Thanks for doing this. We appreciate your time.
Thank you. Thanks for having me on. Sorry for coughing there, but I just got back from vacation, which consisted of a lot of hiking with my wife and some golf with my boys. And the hiking was pretty aggressive. It was like 2.5 kilometers uphill, so it didn't really feel like a vacation. My lungs were burning, and that sensation you have where you cough a lot. So I had that, and I'm surprised anybody from Regina actually wanted me on their show because we got a brawl back then. It was about 92-ish, 93 in the playoffs. It was might have been game 3. It was pretty bad. It was a bench clearing brawl, and I may or may not have went in the stands. Well, I did. Followed my coach, and we each got one game. And yeah, I've seen clips of it. I've never seen the entire thing, but a funny story about it actually is that back then the first guy off the bench got suspended. Everyone else was good, and there was a line brawl at the end of the game. And me and this other guy, Colin Kluche, hopped over, and our coach horse collared us and had us by the back of the jersey. You're not going anywhere. And then one of their guys was a Czech guy, Petruik, something like that. He hopped on the ice and was like, "See you later." So yeah, went and grabbed a couple guys. Well, more than a couple, and might have gone a little aggressive. My temper got the best of me in that one. But I was taking my younger boy to a tournament in Winnipeg, and we stopped in Brandon. This was back when Darren Ritchie was the general manager, and Rich was my line mate the year I scored 40. He had like 62, and Marty Murray had 55, and I had 30 majors, so no one really touched him. But so I grabbed his guy, and I grabbed Marty's guy, and they were pounding them. But anyway, so we're in the office, and he's telling the story to my younger boy. Your dad was a little crazy back in the day. He got in some brawls or whatever. And he's like, yeah, whatever. And so anyways, Rick Dillabo, who Dilly's worked there for, I don't know how many years. Dilly looks like he's 40, and I don't even know how old he is, but he's an awesome guy. I don't think he's aged in 20 years, but he comes flying out of the office, and he's like, yeah, we got in this brawl. He's saying, yeah, we got in this brawl in Regina. And Dilly comes flying out of the office. He's like, yeah, the craziest thing about that, he's like, I've never seen it before. He's like, grown men were sprinting up the aisle, and they came back double-fisted with pop just to throw at us. He's like, I've never seen that before. He's like, first of all, I've never seen that before. He's like, second of all, how is the concession still open? Because the game had been over for, excuse me, a good 30 to 40 minutes. So that's probably why they have the rules now where the concession closes and the second intermission. Most arenas are halfway through the third. So, oh, man, they're throwing batteries at us. I mean, I probably deserved a little bit. But then, so the next day at practice, me and Colin Kluche, we were bigger guys. So it's back in the wood stick era. And so we had our own pattern. Like usually you don't get a pattern until you're drafted, but it wasn't really a pattern. It was just a left-handed stick that was extra stiff. And those things were like 2x4s. Like you could chop a guy cross-check, and it was really hard to break them. So the next day of practice, I break like 3 of them. And I'm like, what the frig, man? What the heck? I go to our assistant coach, Big Johnny. And I'm like, what the heck, man? I break like 3 sticks. He goes, what do you think I was hitting the fans with when they were trying to come over the glass? And I'm like, okay, yeah. That makes sense. So, anyway.
Oh, Chris, that's a different Western Hockey League, but I love that era because that, like I said, that was right. I was just getting into the radio business, living in Moose Jaw. We're doing the games on CHB. It was awesome. Bobby Lowe's is your coach. So back then, the coaches were tough. Like Al Tour, you had all these guys. You had Mooner. You had guys that legitimately the coaches could have had their own division. We'll get to that because you are a hockey dad, and I want to get to that in just a bit because you've got a son in the Western Hockey League and a son that played some games in the SJ. The Edmonton Oilers lose to the Florida Panthers in the Stanley Cup, and this for the second year in a row in the Panthers, you won 2 cups, so you're more than qualified to speak on this. What did you see in that series? The first 2 games, everybody, the expectations, it was going to be incredible. And then how it played out, the Panthers in 6. What did you see?
Turnovers. It's hard to win in the playoffs. And, obviously Florida's got a really good team. Everyone's like, the advantage Florida teams have now. But no one brings up the fact that no one wanted to go there 20 years ago because they were terrible.
No.
Actually, when I went there in 2002, we were calling guys up straight from the East Coast, because we had a bunch of injuries, like Freddie Modine, Tim Taylor, Marty St. Louis, broken his leg, I think. And literally we're calling our team was not good. And then the next year we were good. And then, we ended up winning a cup, but, we learned how to win, and we had veteran guys, and Dave Anderchuk was one, Daryl Sedord won a cup. I had won a cup, and winning is really hard. And, back, we played against New Jersey back in 2001, and, they had a great team, and we had a great team. We had Patrick Waugh, they had Marty Brodeur, 2 Hall of Famers, but like, it was literally don't turn the puck over. Like, I remember Game 7, so we were down 3-2. We went on the road, won Game 6. So I actually said that, like, the Oilers aren't out of this. They go back, especially what happened the year before. Like, they were down, and then they just didn't play the right way. In my opinion, it's Florida's a team much like the Devils, where they want to force you into bad decisions. They're really good defensively. They got a good goaltender, obviously, in Bobrovsky, and I love the way Jay Onrait says that, Bobrovsky. So it's like my mentality and you have 2 of the best players in the world, if not, depending on who you ask, right? Obviously McDavid and Draisaitl, and Bouchard had a really good playoffs. He turns the puck over the odd time, but literally it's so hard to tell these great players that want to carry the puck, just dump it in. Like, that's what the Oilers, they fell behind to LA because they didn't want to dump it in. LA's playing a 1-4. Actually, I went to about 4 or 5 games in the playoffs, and then they just got smart and they dumped it in. They took the series over, and LA was gassed because they only played literally 3 lines, and that's literally how they won that series and took it over. And you go again against Florida, again in the finals, and it's frustrating, but again, I'll go back to playing the Devils. Like, it was frustrating playing them. Like, all we worked on in practice was D to the weak side, D to the winger, and you chipped it in. Literally had to land. It was like a curling shot. You had to land it like right on the goal line, because Marty Brodeur was so good at playing the puck that if you put it anywhere close to net, like, the D wouldn't even go back to play the puck. They go to the hash marks. And Marty was like, no offense to their defenseman, but I think he might have been the 3rd best passer, if not 2nd best, in Niedermeyer as far as moving the puck. And he literally sauced it up to him. And as frustrating as it was, you had to do it. And then you just had to wait for your opportunities. We got down 3-2, and we won Game 6. And then, Game 7, we got up, I think it was 3-1. Alex Tanguay had a couple goals, I believe it was. But I've watched that game a couple times, and from the second period on, we literally gave up like 1 prime scoring chance, and nothing against Ray Bork. He's one of the best defensemen of all time. I believe it was Peter Sikora, got around him and got in and got an opportunity, and Patty Waugh made an unbelievable save. But we literally gave up 1 prime scoring chance. Like, all we do is chip it off the glass, chip it in, chip it off the glass. We iced it, I don't know, probably 30 times. And is that the most exciting hockey you want to see? No, but is that what it took to win once you're already up? Because once you're up, the Oilers, they're great. They have offensive players. They have a good team, but you're continually trying to come back in games. It's like I think they gassed themselves in Game 4. I mean, what an unbelievable game, in a comeback. But you can't do that game after game. And the series really, for me, was Game 2, where, again, they don't have a great start. Or no, they had a good start. I think they scored first, and then they let their foot off the gas, and Florida was up. And then Corey Perry, I believe, was tied it late. And that's your chance. You tie late, you take all the gas, or wind out of their sails, or whatever analogy you want to use. They tie it up, and you just deflate a team. And then I called Edmonton in double overtime, and Florida ended up scoring. And I mean, right there, you could have been up. You could have been up 2-0, and then you go into Florida, and then you're kind of weak. Game 3 is awful. Game 4, so you're 2-2, and then you come home Game 5, and you just lay an egg, and you're not ready to play. And then Game 6 was just. So I don't know, everyone says, Draisaitl was injured or whatever, but everyone's injured. And I'm not ripping on those guys. They're way better players than I ever was. But, I like doing the things you need to do to win. And, you have all this talent. We had Peter Forsberg, but he wasn't even playing because he was hurt in Colorado. People forget this. He lost his spleen after Game 7. We were out for dinner, and he's went to the trainer. He's like, man, I got this pain or whatever. And he had surgery. I believe it was that night. So we didn't even have Peter Forsberg. But what that did is our coach Bob Hartley, there's good things and bad things, about coaches, but he always wanted to play his top guys, and he was killing Ray Bork. He's playing Ray Bork 40. Where's a game against St. Louis? We're going in triple overtime. Borky played 45 minutes, and he was 40 years old. And we had Rob Blake and Adam Foote, but you have those, and the Joe Sakic, those guys. You want to, they're unbelievable players. They're Hall of Famers. You want to play them, but you can't play them 25 minutes a night. You just can't as a forward, or 23 minutes. And I think that's really what's, with the Oilers, when they get down, it's what are you going to do? And Woodcroft did the same thing. And I thought Knobloch did a lot of good things. I think, shuffling lines and moving guys around. I'm a big proponent of that. A lot of coaches have pairs now. But if you're playing McDavid and Draisaitl together, what does Florida do at home? They just put Barkov and Ekblad out against them.
I know.
They make the matchups easier.
We're chatting with Chris Dingman, 2-time Stanley Cup champion, former Western Hockey Leaguer with the Brandon and Kings on the Western Pizza Guest Hotline. A lot of people listening to this show. There's a lot of Oiler fans everywhere, including Saskatchewan. So now that it's the off season, and now that McDavid's like, I don't know, I got to check with my family. Is he resigning? All of that. In your opinion, what do the Oilers need to do in the offseason? What are the holes they need to fill if they're going to go back to the Stanley Cup final next year or hopefully win this thing? Where do they need to get better?
Well, I think if you have a healthy Zach Hyman, I think that series maybe goes the other way. I mean, who knows? Like maybe it wouldn't have, but I think the way he plays and like he's not the biggest guy, but he just goes. He's like one of those guys that, like similar to a Sam Bennett, where he was finishing checks. He goes to net. He's a younger version of Corey Perry, let's say. So you really missed him. If I'm the Edmonton Oilers, and I've said this for years, and whether I'm right, wrong, or whatever opinions are, I'm bringing in guys that won. So you look at Brad Marchand, and everyone's like, "Wow, you're going to get a first rounder for him," or I think it was a second that turned into a first. I don't follow it too closely, but. Like, I could bring a guy like that into my team that has won and is a miserable little – I mean, he's the greatest guy in the world. He's having a good time. He's been partying for, I don't know, a week or 10 days now. But you're laughing, but that guy wanted to win. And Boston, they didn't want to sign him or they didn't want – whatever happened, it went sour, and that guy wanted to stay there. I'm doing everything to bring a guy like that in. I'm bringing in guys that have won Stanley Cup champions. I'm bringing in guys that have won because – it's like I was joking with Adam Foote one time because he was a good buddy of mine. He took me under his wing, but he just verbally abused me at the rink. And I'm like, well, man, like he's like invite me over for Monday Night Football, and the next day at the rink, he'd be like, how many beers and chicken wings you have last night? You fat? You know what? I'm like, was that your house, man? Like, whatever. But he was toughening me up, and whatever it may be. But I don't know where I was going with that. But So we went out one night, and he's like, oh, I got to go. And I'm like, what are you talking about? You got a babysitter, man. Don't be a wuss, whatever. And he's like, yeah, I got one tonight, but I don't have one tomorrow morning. And I'm like, yeah, but you got whatever. And he's like, listen, I got to get up. It's my day to get up with the kids. The kids get up at 7 or whatever. And he's basically like, shut it. Like, until you've done it, you don't know. Until you have kids, you don't know what it's like to have kids. Like, oh, having kids is easy. Oh, yeah, really? I have 3 of them. I have 3. My kids are pretty good kids, but it's difficult at times. So it's the same thing for winning. Like, the Oilers, they've been there. But how many guys on their team? They have Corey Perry, I think, was the only guy that's won a Stanley Cup. And, like, he played great. He gave him everything he had. But I'm bringing in guys that have won, because if you want to build a culture, and I think they do, and you saw it with McDavid and Draisaitl, you saw it with Ovechkin and all the star players where, when Ovi won, he decided, I want to win. I want to play defense. I don't care about scoring. I'd rather win. I've scored 50 goals, and right, wrong, or indifferent, if you're talking about the Hall of Fame and whether someone's worthy or not, obviously McDavid and Draisaitl, I think, will be first ballot Hall of Famers, but I think, winning's a big part of it, and guys decide, okay, like I've put up these points, I've won scoring titles, MVPs, I want to win, but you need guys that have done it. You need guys like nothing against Corey Perry. Corey Perry's an unbelievable player, but I think he's he's still playing at 39. I think he was 39, turning 40, and still contributing. But you need to bring in guys that have won and know what it takes, but they're still, I don't want to say this, like elite, not elite players, but, like not 4-5 players. And Corey Perry was, nothing against him. Again, he was playing on the first line, like half the playoffs, I believe it was, in first power play, because he was so good. He went to the front of the net. He was a miserable, he was fighting. And I would bring in guys like that. Trent Frederick, wasn't 100%, and I think the high ankle sprain. I'd bring in greasy guys. The Oilers have all the skill in the world, and it's fun to watch them play. And those games were nothing like when I played, like 3-0 or 3-1, 4-1. Like that was game over. And today's NHL, like, don't change the station because all of a sudden the game's tied. I would bring in guys that have won and guys that are hard to play against because they have a ton of skill and they're fun to watch, but. You need guys, and again, like you need players that are hard to play against. Like Sam Bennett, like how much money is he going to make? And Marchand, everyone's like, "Wow, look at this guy!" And yeah, because he battles. Like he's not, I don't know, what is he, 5'9", maybe 5'7"? I don't know, somewhere in there. But he's hard to play.
Put on a clinic. Yeah, we're chatting with Chris.
Opportunities.
Yeah. We're chatting with Chris Dingman on the Western Pizza Guest Hotline. He was a first-round draft pick by the Calgary Flames. The NHL draft will get going on Friday. the game has changed, obviously. You're a hockey dad. Son Hunter played some games with the Estevan Bruins last year. Sawyer plays with the Swift Current Broncos. The hockey is so different now. I feel bad for some of these guys that are going to get drafted or do get drafted that are incredibly talented. They go to teams. Look at Connor Bedard. He's supposed to go fix all the problems in Chicago. That's too much for one player. Is there too much pressure for some of these guys who are 18 years old to come in to try and be saviors of these teams that have had years of mismanagement? It's not their fault, basically, but now you're part of the problem?
Well, I mean, there's pressure everywhere, I think, in every job. And, obviously professional sports, especially hockey in Canada, like most people played hockey and feel like they could have made it or should have made it. And, I could have had a better career. I could have had a worse career. Like things change. And, as you mentioned, I was a first round pick and then the guys who drafted me got fired. And then all of a sudden I'm just another guy and, I ended up making the team and whatever. And, I could have had more opportunities. Yes. Could have had less, whatever. But, you can set a guy up to fail or you can set him up to succeed. And, touching on Bedard, like he's an unbelievably talented player, but junior's junior, world juniors are world juniors, pro's pro, American Hockey League, NHL. And, I think they went over how many different line mates he had. It was 12 or 16 or whatever the number was. But, having played for Mike Foligno, that family is unbelievable. So to be able to play with Nick, I believe Marcus is in Minnesota, but to be able to play with Nick Foligno, he's not the player he once was, but he's still a really good player. And, that team it's not the best team, but, I watched him play and I was watching a broadcast and Mark Messier, one of the greatest players of all time. And, growing up in Edmonton, I like Gretzky, but I love Messier because he was a really good player, but he was also tough. And he, his elbows obviously would be suspendable in today's era. And back then, I think it was like maybe a 2-minute minor. But I was watching a game and he was going over a video and he was showing Bedard in the defensive zone and he's swinging around, he's flying the zone. He's the centerman. And he's like, then he put him back on the power play. Like, what message are you sending to your team? And you're right. Like, it's a lot of pressure to put on one guy, but that kind of goes with, where you're drafted. If you're a top pick, you're a top pick, right, wrong, or different. It's how you handle it and having the right people around you. But one thing you have to do, and if you want to play at the elite levels, you can't be one dimensional. If you're a goal scorer, like I coached girls hockey for 3 years and, the U18 level and, they would, we're just getting them scholarships so they could go to school. Well, they were getting themselves scholarships. Sorry, let me correct myself. We were helping them. They were doing the work. But, all I would tell them is you're a goal scorer. You're a great player. You're a really talented player, but you're not going to go to college and you're not going to step in. You're not going to play in the top 6. If you want to go D1, you're not playing in the top 6 for a year or 2, maybe 3 years. So how are you going to play? Like, how are you going to get ice time? Because if you can kill penalties, win face-offs, you're hard to play against, you get pucks out, you get pucks in, win battles, that can get you into the lineup. And even if you're a skilled player and you're a goal scorer, and, maybe that's part of, some of the troubles that Connor Bedard's have. He's not the biggest guy, but you look at Brad Marchand, look at some of these other undersized guys. If you learn how to do the other things, you learn how to play defense. So if I want to score goals, and, this is what I talk to them too, and even my kids, is that, so if you have the puck in your own end, let's say you're in your own end for 15 or 20 seconds, and it comes up to you on the wing, and you just throw it away, it goes back in, you're another 10 seconds probably guaranteed in your own end. And then you're going to go try and play offense after being on the ice for, let's say 30, 40 seconds, somewhere there. Now you're going to go try and score. Do you have any energy left? Maybe a little bit, but you probably shouldn't if you're battling down low in the centerman. And then you're going to go try and score. Do you have energy to do that? Not really. And then you're going to go try and score, and then you're going to change on the back check, or you're going to go back and then get, play defense and then get it in and change or whatever. So I think it's a learning process for a lot of players, and hopefully, like you mentioned, Bedard figures out. I mean, there's a lot of great young players, and hopefully they can surround them with other players. But, I'm a big proponent of you have to do the little things, because the little things turn into big things in the playoffs and the regular season. Well, more so, obviously, in the playoffs. I mean, look at Game 6. I think it was Bouchard who had a great playoff run. And, I think he has Edmonton fans loving him and hating him, and sometimes because he makes these unbelievable plays, and then these other plays are like, oh my God, man, what are you doing? Like backhand sauce at the middle of your own end. But I tell them, people are like, oh, he's like whatever. But part of what makes him good is he has so much puck poise, and he doesn't panic, and he toe drags, and he moves around, and whatever. And I had lunch with a guy yesterday, and he's like, "How many shots did he get through?" And I'm like, "It's like virtually impossible to get a shot through. Like if you watch games, like the way guys are coached, it's all about shooting lanes, sticks in passing lanes, and then everyone's in a shooting lane. So you really need like 2 good passes, maybe 3 that are a bing bang, and then to get a one-timer. Like the one goal he scored, I believe it was in the finals. He teed up, he wheels in, takes a clapper, drills the guy in the hip, puck bounces back to him, takes a slap shot and scores on Bobrovsky because his own. I think it was the winger. Yeah, was screening him. He couldn't see the puck, and he was like looking like, "Where's what do we want me to do on that?" But like it's so hard to get shots through, and like teams are coached to play defense and be in the right spot. And the Florida Panthers were a team that. So yeah, it's there's a lot of pressure on guys. Obviously, you look at the Oilers for years, like they didn't have good teams. Those guys had to battle through it, and they've had a taste of success. So there is definitely a lot of pressure, but I mean that's why they pay him the big bucks too.
All right, Chris Dingman, we'll wrap on this, and we really appreciate your time. It's been 21 years, and I remember I was living in Calgary at the time, and you crushed us. Okay, in your honest opinion, in Game 6, after watching the replay a million times, what, in your opinion, was that goal in? Did the Flames score to win?
They did not. So we did a.
Okay.
TV, you saw the TV angles, which was not directly down, so it was really hard to see. So we actually did a Zoom during COVID. So whatever, I'm not going to go down the COVID whatever, but everyone started doing Zooms and whatever video or whatever you want to call it. So we did a Zoom with our team, and we did a couple. Actually, we did one where we rewatched Game 7. And all the guys were on it and having a few, and a few F-bombs were dropped, and guys were like, "Yeah, you're actually live on Twitter, like, or X, whatever it's called now." Anyway, so we did a Zoom, like just our team, our entire team, and Tortorella didn't get on it, but Craig Ramsey, our assistant coach, and Jeff Reese, and our video coach, Nigel Kirk, and Nigel's been in Tampa for, I think, like 30 years. He's the longest standing employee, I believe. Unbelievable guy. But he showed, so he was showing like all the, because we had cameras following us and stuff. So we were watching behind the scenes, and it was pretty funny. Some of the chirping and different things. And Andre Waugh, who's an unbelievably hilarious guy. A lot of it was him. But anyway, so we're doing the Zoom, and he goes, for those of you that think it was in, so he showed us the straight overhead camera. So that Toronto sees, when they review a goal or whatever, they have a camera that's like literally right over the crossbar. So he showed us the video, and, to overturn a call, you have to see some white, right? You have to see the puck, and you have to see and you couldn't see any white. And he's like, just so anyone, and also to what I'll say to that is that there was also double overtime, and there was also Game 7. So
I know
that didn't win. Didn't win the series, but that was all we know. But literally, all we talked about in that game is that the disappointment. Those guys, and I was good friends with Joe McGinley. We trained together, and Stefan. I knew a bunch of guys on Calgary, and like all I said before the game is like all let's worry about is having a good warm up and a good first shift, and just get it in. Just get it in. The longer the game goes along, the more pressure on them, and they thought they'd scored, they didn't, and then we scored, and we just ripped their hearts out because the cup was in the building, and that's heavy on, and that's what I said. That's what I said last year with when Edmonton was trying to come back and they won those 3 in a row. And I'm like, Edmonton, just go Game 7, just go on the road and just dump it in, just dump the puck in. Don't even try and score, just don't turn it over, because the longer it goes, the pressure's on the other team. And then we saw how that went. So it's like Chris Dingman, sometimes they listen, sometimes they don't.
I got 3 of my own. Trust me, I know they don't. Yeah. Chris Dingman, thank you. This was awesome. I hope that we could do it again. It's Chris Dingman, 2-time Stanley Cup champion, former Brandon Wheat King. If he did end up punching you in the stands in Regina in the early 90s, let's let bygones be bygones. I mean, sorry. Statute of limitations is run out.